All right, we will begin. I apologize. The last 2 nights I had chasanas, so could not make it. And also tomorrow night, unfortunately, I think I'll be flying at 8 o'clock. So, oh well. Okay,
That is the worst excuse ever. So we do not accept.
there will be Wi-Fi on the plane though. So, okay, we'll see if how the turbulence is. We are in the fifth chapter. If you remember last week, we were discussing. Yeah, it was convenient. Rabbi Hertzfeld was not here for the last one, which we discussed with chapter 5, law 4, where it talked about one's wife, the do's and don'ts in the bedroom. That was halacha dalid, if you remember. So that was bedroom talk. And we're going to start with 5, hey, because hey is really a continuation of 4 that discuss the way you should act with your wife in the bedroom. So number 5 says, "Kol hanoag min hagzeh." So the Rambam concludes and says, well, if you take my advice and if you are modest in your tashmish hamita, lo dai lo shakidish nafsho v'tir atzmo v'tikin de'osav. Not only do you do it personally for yourself, that you achieve a level of kedusha, elashim hayu lo banim yihei naim ubaishanim. Now, again, I say this every night that at least we're doing this, but keep in mind the Rambam takes his laws from Gemaras. So he over here is referring to a famous Gemara in Nedarim. If you remember, Nedarim 20. That's the page that they skip in yeshiva, if you're interested, because it talks about the do's and don'ts, about how to act with your wife, what you can do, what you can't do, and then it goes on to list things that happen if you don't listen and you act wrong in the bedroom. You end up having disabled children. It's very, very difficult Gemara to understand because, you know, it's not, you could have disabled children if you don't do it. And even if you do it, doesn't necessarily mean you will. Whatever it is, you have all kinds of various children born with epilepsy. If you could remember the Gemara there talks about born with diphtheria, born with this problem, born with that problem. It also talks about if you're with your wife when she's in nida, the kids also turn out bad, right? Several Gemaras about that. And this is really what the Rambam's alluding to, is saying that if you follow proper, minhag, then your sons will be na'imu baishanim. Very nice. Pleasant, they'll be baishanim, ru'uyim l'chachmu l'chasidus. They'll become Elimelech Chasidim. That's what the Rambam guarantees, if you behave properly in the bedroom. V'chol ha'noheg b'minhag sha'ar ha'am. But if you act like the other nations, ha'holchen b'choshech, who walk in dark, here the Rambam is poetic. He's referring to a pasuk, I believe in Yeshaya, that calls the goyim am ha'holchen b'choshech. The beginning of the 9th parak of Isaiah refers to the nations of the world as those that walk in darkness. So, i.e., non-Jews, you will have children like non-Jews, like as they say, shagets in Yiddish. So that's what your children will become if you don't heed my advice. So that's very, very difficult to understand, but that's what the Rambam says. He wants you to listen to him. And again, everything comes from the Gemara in at least Halacha Hey. Halacha Vav. We're going to segue from the bedroom to a related topic of just how to act. That's really what this 5th chapter is about. It starts off by talking about how to dress, how to walk, how to eat, how to do business. So here he kind of gets back in 6 to more do's and don'ts. So snius gedola nohagan talmidei chachamim ba'atzman. When it comes to talmidei chachamim, right now, usually when you hear the word snius, I'd say 90% of responses are, yeah, women, tznius, right? It's the woman has to be tzanua. The woman, tznius, right? Tznius patrol. But here, the Rambam uses it directed toward men, right? We don't think of it. And again, like we said last week, almost every directive and order the Rambam is writing is all for the men. So here he says that the men have to be tzanua. How is a man tzanua? Lo yitbazu. Okay, they can't lower themselves. Lo yisgalu roshan, right? Covering your hair. So we think covering your hair, right? You automatically, oh yeah, women cover their hair, sure. No, men have to cover their hair, right? They have to cover their hair with a yarmulke, with a hood, with a turban, right? The Rambam had a turban. At least the pictures depict him as though he had a turban. V'lo yisgalu roshan v'lo gufan. You have to cover your body. You can't walk out in a tank top and speedos, right? You have to look the part. So here we go back to the bathroom again, right? The Rambam, as we know, is very, very. If you haven't figured that out by now, very, very into bathrooms. So even when you go out to the bathroom, now we all know that's the outhouse that was miles away from the city, right? Well, not miles, but a long way out of the city. So you had tsanua, right? There's proper, before we discuss bathroom etiquette, now we're going to discuss bathroom attire. Okay, you got to cover yourself up. Lo yigala begadav ad sheyeshev. Before you squat, you have to wear your clothing. You don't want other people to see you naked. V'lo yikanech beyamin. So here the Rambam gets a little graphic, and this is one of those halachas that I like to remind. Not when people ask about why Judaism is so difficult and why is everything halachas. From the minute you wake up to basically the minute you go to sleep, right? Whether you put your right shoe on first or your left shoe on first, or what shoulder do you sleep on? Do you sleep on? Remember we had that last week, 2 weeks ago. You start on the right shoulder, you nip on the left shoulder. Every single movement from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep is directed by halacha. And here is a perfect example. You have to wipe in the bathroom with your right hand. Okay? V'yisrachak mikol adam, and when you're in the bathroom, stay away from people. V'yikanes cheder lifnei mecheder, ma'ara lifnei ma'ara v'nifneh. So I don't know exactly what the setup was, but if it was like a cave, if there were rooms, pick the furthest room away from everyone, do your business, and then get the heck out. That's what it seems like the Rambam is telling you. The imnifner acharei hageder. So now he's saying, well, if you're on the highway and you wanna, you need to stop and pee, so just do it, right? Do your business and yitzchachek, but just stay away from people. Like, don't do it in public. Like today, you see a car pull over. Most people, do it behind the cars. They go behind they'll find a gas station. They'll go behind a barn. Whatever it is, just stay away from people. In case you make noises, unintended consequences, you don't want to be next to people. What if you're in, Bika is literally a valley, but if you're, in an open place, that's what the point over here is. Yarchik, stay away from people. Again, you can't control yourself, right? When you got to go, you got to go. So you have to find a secluded place, even if you're in a wide open field in Iowa and there's like nowhere to turn, you have to just, separate yourself from people. So people won't see your deposits. So this is a topic about talking in the bathroom, right? We know that you can't talk halacha in the bathroom. I heard a shaila, could you even tell someone that there's a halacha that you can't talk in the bathroom? Got that riddle? That itself is a halacha. So can you tell someone that there's a halacha that you can't talk in the bathroom? That's we'll have a share on that one day. There's a very, very long answer on that. But how about just talking and shooting the breeze? Texting is a suffix, whether that's considered dibur or not. I feel it's even if there's a big emergency and you need to sell your stock, the market's crashing, and you're in the bathroom, you cannot call your stockbroker. Just like we have these laws about being modest, right, during the day, do the same thing at night when you would think that, okay, he can't, they didn't have lights, so maybe he can't see me. Maybe it's, easier. Just, the Rambam says, just play it safe, whether day or night. Ula milamed adam atzmo lihipano shachris fa'arvis bilvad kedei shelo yisrachek. Right? When it comes to number two, always train yourself to go early in the morning or late at night because you don't want to take a hike during the day. Why not? Presumably because you're working, you're doing something, right? Okay, so that's another pitch for working. Number 7. Okay, so that's Vav. So we're off the bathrooms, okay, for now. We're going to get back to how to act. Okay, 7. Zion. Talmud Chacham lo yeh tzoek v'tzovech b'shas dibur kebehemus v'chayis. Don't act like an animal when you're talking to someone. Don't scream. Obviously, if you're at a game and you want to cheer your team on, I don't know, maybe the Kesef Mishnah talks about that. But as far as I know, we're talking about just, talking to people or, business. When you're talking to people, just don't act like a chaya, right? Again, these are very, very simple to understand. Don't yell. Speak like a mensch. No need to scream. And the Ram says, be very careful that when you do talk, speak very, very, pleasantly to people, and don't be too far away because it appears like you're screaming at them so that they could hear you. And when you greet someone, you should greet them before they greet you, right? Again, all of these are Gemaras. It talks about greeting people, and you say Baruch, you say Baruch Hashem, Hashem Yimachem, whatever your greeting is, you should be the first one to do it. Umaktim Shalom, okay, good. V'dan et kol adam lakav zchus. Wow. So the Rambam over here decides to throw in this bit. We had a 1-hour shiur on this about a couple years ago. If you remember, I quoted the Gemara in Shabbos 127 about the person who worked for 3 years, didn't get paid, and then his boss came to pay him. And he said, oh, how come you think I didn't have, I didn't think you had money. I didn't think you had that. And in the end, it was a nice story, very, very difficult line. It's whatever. It's a very difficult concept to just think that everybody's out for your benefit when we all know it's not true. So I'll skip the editorial, but it's easier said than done. However, the Gemara in the end, if you remember in Shabbos Kuf Chav Zayin, extols the virtues of one who is Dan Lakav Zchus. It says God will judge you favorably. And that was the punchline of the 2 stories in the Gemara, if you remember, where the 2 people were rewarded. Again, it's a nice, fairy tale ending, but easier said than done. When it comes to talking about someone, always take the high road, right? Don't focus on the negatives, focus on the positive. Ohev shalom v'rodef shalom. It's funny, this sounds like a eulogy almost about someone. The Rambam is saying to be like Aaron, always pursue peace. Imroa shedvarv mo'alin, mo'ilin v'nishma'in, omar v'im lav shotek. If you see that your words can help a situation, go for it. But the Rambam is alluding to just, be quiet. Sometimes you're better off saying nothing than trying to help a situation and it ends up backfiring. Ketzad, the Rambam gives you a perfect example, and I'm sure people could understand this for themselves. Lo yiratzeh chaver b'shas ka'aso. Okay? Don't try to appease someone. Don't try to make someone feel better when you see he's fuming mad. And don't tell someone to change his mind on a neder, because most people get angry. They take a neder, and they'll calm down after a few. Right? What do they say today? Take take 48 hours to think about it and come back to me. Right? What does Dr. Phil say? So don't try to correct someone within a couple of days, because most people act impetuously and they just go off the rails for no reason. I just wanted to quote. I know we're running over time, but this is a Gemara in Brachas Daf Zayin, Amar of Yochanan, Minayin she'ein meratzin la'adam b'shas kasa. When a person is really, really angry, don't try to be the hero. Okay, and calm him down. How do you know? Dichsiv pana yelechu v'hanichosilach. Famous pasuk by the Cheta Egel. My face will go, and I will give you rest. Amar lo Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe. I'm quoting from Brachas Daf Zayin, famous Gemara. God said, "Hamten li ad sheyavru panim shel za'am va'aniach lecha." You know what? I'm upset now. Okay, I gave you the Torah. It backfired. You have a Cheta Egel. I want to kill all of you. Let me just have this anger pass, and then we'll talk about calming me down. Just let me have my moment, says God. So that's the source where the Rambam gets this from. Brachos Daf Zayin. Um, Okay, good. If someone is really, really upset, he's an onain, God forbid, right? Someone just died, and you're trying to be menachem him. Let him bury his right. Let him vent. We're all human, right? We need to vent. We need to be angry, right? That's what this is. That's what That's what we're here for. We're all human at the end of the day. Don't try to be a hero and be menachem him. Okay, whatever. There are stories. Mipnei shehu bahul al shekiver. Right, until they bury him, he's fatumult. Right, he's a wreck. V'chen kol hayotze be'elu. Next, v'lo yira lechaver b'shat kalkulo elayalim enav mimenu. Right, there are times. It's like that line. How many times can a man look up and pretend that he doesn't see, right? There are times when you have to pretend, right, not to see someone, right? Someone who is in a very, very bad position, a shas kalkulo, right? You should pretend that you don't see him, right? V'lo yishana b'diburo, the Rambam changes now. He completely takes a right turn, and he says, don't lie, right? Remember we discussed this, echad b'peh v'echad b'alev, not to lie, v'lo yosef, v'lo yigra. And don't exaggerate, over-exaggerate, or under-exaggerate a situation. El b'divrei shalom. The only time you could lie, Rambam's quoting that famous Gemara, right? I think in Yevamos 62, that talks about the times you're allowed to lie for shalom's sake, right? Remember Avraham and Sarah, right? We learned that Avraham lied. Right? Right, the story over there. El b'divrei shalom kiyotze behen. Klal shel davar ein medaber el b'divrei chachma. Right? Ram says, bottom line, you should speak, be very deliberate with your speech, only use it for wisdom, for helping other people. And the Rambam ends off by saying, Lo yisaper im isha bashuk, vafilu hi ishto o achoso abito. Very, very difficult halacha to understand. This is the famous Gemara at the end of, it's actually quoted twice. It's in Brachos, but more famously, it's in Asara Yuchsin, on Daf Ayin, I think, in Kedushin, where it says that Shmuel says you can't talk to a woman in the shuk, even if it's your wife, right? And the Mefarshim explain your wife, your daughter, your sister. I mean, this is very, very, not Lamaisa. At least I don't think. But the bottom line is people won't know if it's your wife, and they're going to think they're going to be choshed. And it's just not a good thing to speak to women in the market. We got to stop here.